The Vice Chairman of our Financial Institutions Subcommittee, Mr. Loudermilk, recognized for 5 minutes.
So thank you, Mr. Chairman. Secretary, thank you for being here. I think you and I are both aware of the paradox of the U.S. Reserve currency status. The so-called Triffin dilemma says that to maintain the benefits of a global reserve currency status, we may always run a concurrent account deficit, which in turn risks undermining global confidence in the dollar. The U.S. enjoys an exorbitant privilege from the dollar's reserve status. This means that among other benefits, there is a high demand for dollar-dominated assets worldwide, substantially lowering borrowing costs. It also allows us to run sustained trade deficits and drives capital investment into the United States. So my first question is, how is our current reserve status different from what it was under the Bretton Woods system when the dollar was convertible to a fixed amount of gold rather than floating?
Well, sir, it's now based on the full faith and credit of the United States rather than backed by gold.
Okay. Does the demand for dollars and the U.S. debt worldwide and the reduced borrowing costs that come with it contribute in a meaningful way to some of our failings as fiscal stewards?
Well, I would say that the unfettered ability to borrow has made us more prolific as there is very little potential for market discipline to date. Right. But there is the potential that the market may discipline the United States government one day. And I am, along with the administration, President Trump, trying to set the country on a path to avoid that.
And we appreciate that. I've long said that I don't feel that there is the political will within Congress anymore to restrict spending and balance the budget. And so I appreciate the work that you're doing there. Is there a world where we can have our cake and eat it too? In other words, is there a policy configuration where the U.S. can maintain the best elements of its exorbitant privilege while also having a balanced export economy?
Yes, sir, there is. And I would point out that the exorbitant privilege, as I believe it was a French politician called it, does not always result in the lowest interest rates. Japan's interest rates are lower than ours. China's interest rates are lower than ours. Most of the EU interest rates are lower than ours.
Okay. I want to shift gears just slightly. For several years, I've called for FinCEN to raise the threshold for currency transaction reports from $10,000 to some higher value. Working on legislation, have been for the last several years, and I do have legislation again this year on that. If adjusted for inflation from the 1970s, this threshold would be somewhere between $74,000 and $80,000. But we haven't. We're still stuck at that $10,000 limit. In your opinion, what threshold value best balances privacy and compliance costs against the utility that these reports have for law enforcement?
Congressman, I am not sure what the equilibrium level is. What we have discovered, so you were talking about the threshold for a suspicious activity report.
Or the currency transaction report, yes. Which is in a segment.
So we are now examining that, and we are finding that sometimes higher is better, sometimes lower is better. We have discovered that there are approximately 40 counties on the U.S.-Mexico border that account for a substantial amount of nefarious behavior by the cartels. So we have lowered that to $200, and we are finding great efficacy there in pushing the cartels back into Mexico and not allowing them to deal in the United States. So I would say, sir, it's a moving target.
Okay, and I can understand and appreciate that. One of the issues that we have from a nationwide status is the compliance cost that goes to small financial institutions, and even from law enforcement, the complaint is trying to find illicit financing currently is like looking for a needle in the haystack because of the pure volume of reports that are being made. And so my argument has been in a nationwide status, and I'm sure we can work on something to make exemptions during times like you're talking about now in locations, but is not to increase the size of the haystack, but reduce the haystack so it becomes more prevalent the illicit financing.
And look, Congressman, I am hypersensitive to the needs of the small and community banks and the undue burden that much compliance is placing on them. And we are working across a variety of ways to lower those costs.
All right, look forward to working with you on these things.
The gentleman yields back. The ranking member on the Oversight and Investigation Subcommittee, the gentleman from Texas, Mr. Green, is recognized.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. Thank the ranking member, and I thank the witness for appearing. Mr.